Shout out to Dude Prinny for contributing to the making of this video as a silver tier channel member. Alright, let's get into it. From the forehead to the back, gemstones in Steven Universe aren't just slapped onto a gem's body at random. What if I told you these placements actually mean something? That you could infer a gem's personality just by looking at where their gemstone is embedded. The show's creators used these placements in interesting ways. Some are pretty obvious, like Eyeball, witnessing pink diamonds shattering, symbolizing vigilance. Others are more subtle, but still meaningful. Now let's be real, not every background gem was designed with this in mind, but for major characters, these placements are definitely part of the storytelling. Let's start with the main character, Steven, and by extension, rose quartz and pink diamond. Gems with navel placements tend to be nurturing, sensitive, and deeply empathetic. They're the type to cry over a hurt fly. Look at Navy, for example. Her sweet, caring nature fits perfectly with the navel symbolism. Although she's a ruby, gems that are generally known for their hot-headed and abrasive persona, she's calmer, more gentle than her peers. It's the spot where the umbilical cord once connected a mother and child, emphasizing themes of attachment and care. They tend to exhibit more feminine traits, both phenotypically and in their behavior. They combine the traits of both mother and child. They interact with the environment around them with a sort of excitement you see with children. Children who, for example, just came across a butterfly for the first time. But then they also have their motherly traits where they care for everything around them, even the things that seem worthless. In fact, especially the things that seem worthless. They protect the things they love fiercely, the way a mother would her child. In a cut of gems, it won't be surprising if they are the runt of the group, the baby, if you wish. You know, similar to the way Bubbles is the baby amongst her sisters, she embodies all things feminine and cute. But like Bubbles, gems like these mustn't be underestimated. There's another layer to this placement. Navel-gemmed characters are often playful or even goofy, which can make them seem less serious. Steven's constant optimism, Rose's whimsical personality, it all tracks. But that same warmth and playfulness can make easy to underestimate. They have hidden sides people don't always see. Take Navy, sweet, kind, almost too good to be true, until she betrayed the crystal gems without hesitation. Rose Quartz too had secrets, a past that didn't align with her loving, carefree facade. And Steven, he may have been the heart of the crystal gems, but as the series progressed, we saw just how much he repressed, how much he struggled with the weight of his legacy. That hidden complexity is a recurring theme for navel-gemmed characters. You can even see this theme of nurturing in the nature of Steven's powers. He's a healer, can create sentient plants, and has a shield, a majorly defensive weapon as his gem weapon, all alluding to his pacifist nature. Now let's shift gears. Gems with forehead placement are thinkers. They prioritize intellect over emotion, often getting caught up in logic and precision. This makes sense when you consider that the forehead is associated with the third eye in many belief systems. It represents intuition, insight, and higher consciousness. These are gems who crave knowledge, perfection, and control. They strategize, plan, and micromanage. Pearl embodies all of this to a T. She's intelligent, meticulous, and sometimes overbearing in her desire for order. She struggles with letting go, with allowing others to make decisions without her input. Her forehead gem reflects this constant internal battle. Rationality versus emotion, devotion versus independence. Pearl is a skilled tactician and fighter, always thinking several steps ahead. She strategizes rather than acting impulsively, making her one of the most calculating characters in the series. Because forehead gem characters tend to be micromanagers, Pearl often imposes her own way of doing things onto others, whether it's training Connie or trying to shape Steven's upbringing in Rose's absence. Despite her deep capacity for love and devotion, Pearl struggles to openly express emotions, preferring to intellectualize her feelings rather than confront them head-on. She holds in her grief over Rose Quartz for years, masking it with duty and structure. Pearls in Homeworld society are designed to be assistants, perfect, flawless, and obedient. Pearl rebels against this, yet still retains a deep need to be perfect, to prove her worth through her intelligence and skill. Pearl's journey throughout the series is about learning to let go of her obsession with Rose, of her need for control, of her belief that she must be perfect to be valuable. As she grows, she becomes more emotionally open, proving that even a forehead-gemmed character can learn to balance intellect with emotion. So you see, these placements aren't a tell-all, they just represent the base state, the one in which the gem was brought into the world with. The gems in question still have a capacity to grow and contradict this placement as they navigate life and gain experience. Peridot takes this forehead gem logic to another level. She's brilliant but emotionally stunted at first, seeing things in black and white. She approaches problems like a scientist, always analysing, always trying to categorize the world. Over time, she learns to embrace emotions, but her intellect remains her defining trait. Peridot approaches everything scientifically. She prefers facts over feelings, reason over impulse. Her intelligence is her primary weapon, allowing her to solve complex technological problems and think critically in high-pressure situations. Like many forehead-gemmed characters, Peridot initially struggles with interpersonal relationship. She doesn't understand social cues, is blunt to a fault, and often disregards emotional nuance in conversations. First, Peridot sees everything through Homeworld's hierarchical system, where gems have designated roles and purpose. Her forehead placement suggests someone who clings to structure, which makes her initial rejection of Earth's chaotic ways completely logical. Once she starts working with the crystal gems, she has a hard time adjusting to their more relaxed, emotional approach to problem solving. She constantly insists her way is the best way, fitting the forehead gem tendency to micromanage and control situations. Peridot's character arc is about breaking free from rigid thinking and embracing emotional intelligence. Over time, she learns that intellect alone isn't enough. Compassion, creativity, and even silliness have value too. Her development is a perfect subversion of the forehead gem archetype, showing that intelligence isn't just about knowledge, it's also about understanding others. Then there's White Diamond. If a forehead placement represents intelligence and control, she is that idea turned up to 11. White doesn't just crave order, she is order. She believes her logic is absolute, that her way is the only way. Would it be crazy to say I preferred her that way? I hated how quickly they obliterated her character. Her rigidity is what made her beautifully haunting. With Pearl and Peridot, their growth was more developed, more stretched out, but it definitely didn't feel that way with White. Her placement reflects her rigid, all-seeing nature, but also her detachment from emotion and individual identity. Unlike Pearl or Peridot, who struggle with control on a personal level, White extends her authority over an entire civilization. Forehead gem characters prioritize intellect over feelings. White Diamond takes it to an extreme. She dismisses emotions as irrelevant, believing that logic and order should dictate every decision. You'd be lucky to get a full sentence in with her. She sees flaws as something to be erased rather than accepted. This is why she literally bleaches those she controls, forcing them to conform to her version of perfection. Unlike other diamonds, White doesn't see herself as a singular being, but rather as the collective will of Homeworld. Her forehead placement symbolizes her belief in pure intellect, devoid of personal identity or emotion. White Diamond's arc is about learning that perfection isn't about control, but acceptance. When Steven shows her that flaws and emotions aren't weaknesses, she finally breaks free from her rigid worldview. Her story is the ultimate example of the forehead gem archetype, reaching an extreme before being forced to change. Across all three of these characters, we see a clear pattern. They value intelligence, strategy, and control over raw emotion. They struggle with interpersonal relationships due to their overbearing, analytical nature. They seek perfection in different ways, whether it's Pearl's obsession with elegance, Peridot's reliance on facts, or White Diamond's demands for absolute order. Their arcs revolve around learning to balance intellect with emotional understanding. The forehead placement signifies a sharp mind, but also the potential danger of losing oneself in logic. It represents wisdom, but also control, insight, but also detachment. A gemstone embedded in the chest is one of the most emotionally significant placements in Steven Universe. Unlike forehead gems, which symbolize intellect and logic, chest gems represent emotional depth, intuition, and raw personal expression. The chest is where the heart is, making this placement heavily tied to feeling rather than thinking. Characters with chest gem placements tend to be driven by emotions, often acting on instinct. However, not all chest gem characters express their emotions the same way. Some embrace them, while others try to suppress or control them. These characters feel deeply, and their decisions are often dictated by their emotions. They tend to act before thinking, leading to both powerful moments of bravery and reckless behavior. While they embrace emotion, it can overwhelm them, leading to outbursts, insecurity, or attempts to mask vulnerability. Amethyst is the purest example of emotion over logic. She is passionate, instinct-driven, and entirely unfiltered in how she expresses herself. She acts on gut feelings. She fights with instinct, makes snap decisions, and often does what feels right. Despite her outward confidence, Amethyst carries deep insecurities about being made in the kindergarten, the very place that was sucking the earth of its resources. It made her feel like a parasite. Her emotions drive her, her, but they also overwhelm her. Whether she's joking around, getting angry, or showing affection, Amethyst feels everything intensely. Her emotions are right there on the surface, making her one of the most expressive gems in the series. Amethyst's journey is about embracing her emotions without letting them define her self-worth. Over time, she learns that being different doesn't make her any less valuable, and her emotional strength becomes one of her greatest assets. Blue Diamond is another deeply emotional character, but unlike Amethyst, she drowns in her emotions. Blue's emotions are so strong that they physically affect others. Her grief over Pink Diamond's loss radiates outward, making those around her feel her sorrow. Blue represents the weight of grief and how overwhelming emotions can become when they are not processed properly. Instead of healing, she isolates herself, letting sadness define her. Blue has a deep emotional intelligence. She is the only one who acknowledges and mourns Pink. Her chest placement reinforces this connection to the heart. She is a character who feels everything deeply. By the end of the series, she begins to understand that holding onto pain isn't the same as honoring love. Yellow Diamond is the most fascinating example of a chest-gemmed character because she spends most of the series fighting against the nature of her own placement. Unlike Amethyst and Blue, Yellow Diamond hates acknowledging her feelings. She masks her emotions behind rigid logic, military efficiency, and a no-nonsense attitude. While she presents herself as cold and calculating, moments of emotional weakness slip through. When she gets angry, her entire demeanor changes. Her posture tenses, her voice shakes, and she lashes out aggressively. These outbursts reveal just how much she's holding in. In the trial episode, she lashes out after the blue Zircon accuses her of murdering Pink, even poofing the green Zircon who did nothing wrong. This was enough for Blue Diamond to reprimand her. Actually, speaking of Zircons, their gem placement isn't quite on their chest. It looks like the knob of a tie. This is one of the more artistic iterations of the symbolism of the gem placement. It shows their corporate status as lawyers. When Peridot confronted Yellow and called her a clod, she lashed out and lost her cool. When Pink Diamond asked for a colony of her own, you guessed it, another temper tantrum, fusion at the ball, everyone got one shot. And it's not just in moments of anger. In the Change Your Mind episode, Blue confronts her about suffering in silence and burying her emotion, and she breaks down in tears. She's so bad at acknowledging her emotions that she believes Blue is using her powers on her. While Blue lets grief control her, Yellow tries to erase it. She views emotions as a weakness, preferring to shatter her pain. This is why she resents Blue's open mourning of Pink, because it forces her to confront her own feelings. Yellow's growth is about realizing that emotions aren't a weakness. By the end of the series, she softens, acknowledging that pain and grief don't have to be bottled up. She learns that real strength isn't about ignoring emotions. It's about facing them. Chest gems represent emotion, intuition, and raw expression. They struggle with emotional balance. Some embrace their emotions fully, some let them consume them, and some try to suppress them. In a way, these three characters represent different aspects of emotional expression. Chest-gemmed characters love deeply, hurt deeply, and feel deep. Bismuth has a chest gem placement, which immediately tells us that she is a character driven by emotion. However, unlike the others, Bismuth's emotions aren't rooted in personal insecurity, like Amethyst, grief, like Blue Diamond, or repressed vulnerability, like Yellow Diamond. Instead, her emotions manifest through her passion for justice, her loyalty to the crystal gems, and her intense drive to protect what she believes in. Her chest gem placement signifies not just feeling deeply, fighting for what she feels deeply about. Bismuth is a fighter, but her strength comes from passion, not cold calculation. Unlike forehead gemmed strategist, Bismuth acts on instinct and gut feelings. She doesn't stop to overanalyze situations. She feels her way through them. This emotional approach makes her incredibly charismatic and inspiring, but also leads to impulsive decisions, as seen in her willingness to use the breaking point without fully thinking about its consequences. Bismuth isn't just emotional in a personal way. Her emotions are tied to a larger cause. She believes in freedom and equality, and her heart drives her decisions. Her emotions aren't self-indulgent, like Amethyst's insecurities or Blue Diamond's mourning. They are directed outward, at the world around her. This makes her one of the most morally passionate characters in the show. She doesn't just believe in something. She's willing to fight for it with everything she has. Like other chest-gemmed characters, Bismuth doesn't hide her feelings. She wears them on her sleeve. She is open, expressive, and loud about what she believes in, which makes her incredibly likable, but also sometimes intimidating. However, because she is so emotionally driven, she struggles with seeing things from a more nuanced perspective. She views the war in black and white terms, which is why she clashed with Rose Quartz over the breaking point. Bismuth's arc is about understanding that emotions, while powerful, must be but tempered with wisdom. Her belief in fighting for freedom is valid, but her approach is extreme. She initially feels betrayed by Rose and Stephen, taking things personally. Again, her emotional nature makes her loyal, but also easily hurt when she feels rejected. Her return to the crystal gems shows growth. She still fights with passion, but she learns to channel it in a way that aligns with Stephen's ideal. Bismuth is a perfect example of the power of emotion. When it is wielded with wisdom, it can be a force for justice and inspiration. But when left unchecked, it can lead to division and extremism. Oh, Spinel. Her gem doesn't just sit on her chest where the heart should be. It is her heart, literally. It's shaped like one. Rounded, delicate, kind of cartoonishly sincere. Like she was made to love with no guardrails. Made to feel everything, all at once, with no filter. And what better way to represent that but by putting her gem placement on her chest. That's who she was before the garden stopped being fun and the silence stretched 6,000 years long. And when she reforms, when she crawls back from that cliffside grief spiral into the cracked, twitchy version of herself we meet in the movie, her gem is still in her chest, still shaped like a heart, but now it's upside down. The message is loud. This heart doesn't work the way it used to. This love doesn't feel good anymore. It's inverted, turned into something heavy and sharp and leaking with rage. Her gem's cut doesn't change, but the orientation does. That's how intentional it is. They didn't redesign her gem because she's a new character. They flipped it because she isn't. She's still Spinel, still capable of joy and affection, but now it's twisted, weaponized. All of that sweetness turned sour in the silence Pink Diamond left her in. Upside down heart? It's what happens when devotion rots. And what really hurts, what sticks, is that it never flips back. Not even at the end of the movie. Not even after she softens, after she cries, after she stops trying to kill Stephen and agrees to move on. Her heart doesn't rotate, it doesn't correct itself, it just stays broken. And that choice is loud, because this show never promises that healing means going back to who you were. And even in Steven Universe Future, we still see her carrying traces of that trauma, like when she was afraid to leave Stephen and White Diamond alone, fearing they may leave her. And honestly, that's more powerful than a redesign. The moment you see that heart-shaped gem sitting dead center on her chest, you know exactly what she was made for. Not power, not command. She wasn't supposed to think, she wasn't supposed to grow, she was supposed to feel, to pour affection outward, to orbit someone else's moods. Spinel was designed as a toy. She didn't have power in her fists or her mind. She had it in her chest, in the heart, the place where all of that devotion and love and attention had to come from. It's not just where her gem is, it's how she operates. Her movements, her voice, even her elasticity. It's all exaggerated, expressive, dramatic. Every part of her character is built to emote, to perform joy, delight, silliness. She's made to be a companion, but also an emotional echo chamber. And this is most likely what overwhelmed Pink in her bid to escape her childish persona. She wanted to leave behind everything that reminded her of that. Because her gem is in her chest, she doesn't shield her feelings. She wears them out in the open, unprotected, exposed. She was never meant to withstand heartbreak, because she was never supposed to be left behind. Pink Diamond wasn't supposed to outgrow her. So when that day finally comes, when she's told to stay in the garden and wait, it doesn't just bruise her ego or confuse her like it might with other gems. It kills the core of her identity. Because the thing her gem was built to do, give love, is suddenly unreceived. It's like trying to breathe in space. Her emotions don't know where to go anymore. And since it's all centered in her chest, since the heart is the weapon, it becomes the first thing that turns on her. That inverted heart is an internal collapse. Her gem didn't reform to look edgy, it reformed to match the damage. What was once the source of her joy becomes the anchor for her rage. She lashes out because she still feels everything, because that emotional wiring never went away. It just got reprogrammed by pain. It's why she sings instead of screams, why she smiles through the anger, why even at her most dangerous, she's still playful. That's the only language she knows. Emotions twisted around the same performance she was built to give. When your whole being is centered around connection, abandonment doesn't just hurt, it rewrites you.